Welcome to season 3 of the Iceman Kicking Podcast. My name is Brett Arkelian. Kick your feet up, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Iceman Kicking Podcast.
But the guy's made over $25 million in his career and has one reception in the NFL as a wide receiver.
You hear it all the time, but be where your feet are, and good things are going to happen.
Welcome to the Iceman Kicking Podcast. It's the show with cool questions and even cooler guests. And I am joined today by some phenomenal guests. My name, as always, is Brett Arkelian, and I'm joined by a co-host for the first time, a man that needs no introduction, but I will dive in. Named to the first team All Big East Conference in all 4 seasons during his time at Virginia Tech, the Big East Special Teams Player of the Year of 1999. The all-time scoring leader in Virginia Tech and Big East history, Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame athlete, 15-year NFL pro, 2005 Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro, and a man who has coached at the highest of levels in college football at Central Michigan, Michigan State, and Florida. Please put your hands together for Shayne Graham. Shayne, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. And as far as our guest, very excited. The pride of Milledgeville, Georgia. He has spent time at Missouri Southern State, helped Georgia Southern to an 8-0 record in 2013 and 14, helped take Point University to their first ever playoffs. And during 2016 to 2020, helped Tulane and the Green Wave into the top of the American Athletic Conference in special teams. He spent a year at Louisiana last year, helping the Raging Cajuns to become number 15th in punting average and 4th in the Sun Belt in kick return yardage. Everyone say hello to Coach Couch. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. It's hard to follow up that intro with Coach Graham over there. Golly, I can't water.
No, believe me, you got some impressive resume, and obviously, where you're at now and what you've done speaks volumes. So, you know what? Something real quick before we get into it. I saw a video about crawfish. All right, and to you, what is the most important? You did a little hosting on how to make the best crawfish out there. Okay, what is the secret, Coach? You spent a lot of time in the boot. What's the secret there to making the best crawfish?
First thing I think the secret is to have a nice cold beer next to you, and have somebody else cook them. I'm pretty good at eating them, but I think it's a good mix of spice, and I think you got to get them early in the season because those shells get hard later on, But shoot, I'm good at eating them. I don't know if I could cook them anymore, but I love a good crawfish. That's a heck of a video. That's from the past right there. You had to go through the history of the world.
Coach, that is a classic. I might say you're looking good, man. You're looking ready to eat that crawfish, and made me hungry watching it.
Oh man, I forgot about that. Love my time in New Orleans. Met my wife there, and golly, but now on the bigger and better things, I should say.
Quite a few crawfish boils, and those are the cat's walk when you're down there.
Absolutely.
Shayne, you've spent a lot of time bouncing around the country. Where's the best crawfish you've ever eaten at?
I mean, you're from Houston all the way, down through the whole estuary area of Louisiana, like that. That's just where you're going to get the best mud bugs. Everyone has their techniques, with how you brine the water and all that. You got people talking about, well, you got to purge them and put them in, salt water and I don't think that's a myth. I've heard from some people it was a myth to do that, but then I've heard from some people that say keep them in fresh water and just, don't let them have anything to eat so that will clean out their intestines and all that kind of stuff. So who knows, but I never cook them myself. Like Coach Couch said, it's more fun to just crack a beer and let somebody else make it and you just enjoy it.
And no question.
Down there in Southwest Louisiana, sure know how to do them. Our wide receivers coach, Tim Leger, is from right there in Lafayette when I was over in Louisiana. And tell you what, we had some one day that he made, bar none, I should say, so shoot, show me where they are and I'll eat them. Promise you that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Coach. So to get into it, I want to hear a little bit. We briefly went over your coaching history. Really want to hear a story. Tell me about the struggle. Tell me about the coaching grind. Tell me about how you got to where you're at now.
I feel like a lot of it has to do with a lot of luck, and I was around a lot of good people that helped me do a lot of coaching early on in my life. In my career, I've been doing special teams. This is probably my 7th year, I think, doing just special teams. But I've been able to coach on both sides of the ball. Like when I was at D2, I coached slot backs in the triple option. I coached D-line linebackers. I kind of fancied myself a D-line or a defensive coach for a good part of my career. And I think the big thing is I just I probably took some jobs that I didn't need to take, but I thought it was good to get out there and, do it on your own and kind of develop your own coaching style as you go. It's definitely a grind, but I think, being in the bus leagues, being, NAI, I actually started coaching 2007 in junior college, GMC junior college. So I've been in, 15, 16-hour bus rides, Milledgeville, Georgia to Buffalo, New York. I coached NAI, D2, FCS, FBS, and now I'm blessed to be where I'm at now. But man, it was definitely a grind, but I think the big thing is just understand what you want to accomplish and don't be scared to take that first job and just realize, like, you hear it all the time, but, be where your feet are and good things are going to happen. A part of my career, I definitely was looking for the next thing. Like, I'm, in everybody's head, you got that confidence, like, I'm better than this, I can do something more. But when I just finally just settled down and said, you know what, here I am, let's just keep working here. And then kind of fell into place for a little while. So I'm blessed to be around a lot of good coaches, let me do a lot of coaching, and had some confidence in my abilities, and it all kind of took off from there. So just be where your feet are, man.
Love that. I love that advice. And, you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier. You wore different hats, right? Or you worked different position groups. Talk to me a little bit. I know recently, 16 through 20 at Tulane, you were the special teams analyst and did a lot of the recruiting, or the recruiting coordinator. What did that entail? How was that tough? And how was it fun? What was how did it help you?
Yeah, Coach Willie Fritz was our head coach, and he was the special teams coordinator, of kind of the, of sorts. Like, he was the kind of the guy who kind of okayed everything we're doing. And he has a mind of special teams. He's always been a special teams guy. And the thing about working with a head coach that does special teams is a lot of times with other things they have to do, you get to put your own little stamp on what y'all are doing, just because their time commitments aren't always lining up with, developing a game plan all the time, and they really rely on you. So that's what kind of, when I started coaching special teams there, I thought I knew something, and then it's like, okay, you got to learn some more, because he just didn't have time to sit there, and he kind of just threw me in the fire a little bit, and I had to work through it. And I think that's when you kind of learn what you want to do, what your personality is when it comes to the kicking game. And then the recruiting side of it, we had a great recruiting office. And with mine, it was just trying to kind of be the boots on the ground in the office and making sure that we got everything lined up. Recruiting coordinator, I think it just kind of came with the title. Maybe it had something to do with pay scale, I don't know. But we had a lot of other guys that did a lot more recruiting than I did. But I tell you what, when all those guys were on campus and stuff, just being there and making sure everything was organized, I guess, to be the most part of it. But it's it's tough, trying to be able to be there, and you always want, you're looking for that break to get you the job that you want. And I think early on there, I was like, okay, I need to do something more than this. And then kind of like, okay, well, I'm blessed that Coach Fritz has trust in me to develop all these game plans and do this stuff and get it communicated. And then I think it's just a big deal of there's blessing there's things that you get to do wherever you're at that there's always pros and cons to every job you have, so just trying to figure out, okay, luckily I lived a mile from campus, I live right in the heart of Uptown. We went to 3 bowl games, which had never back to back to back, which had never happened in Tulane history. We had some success in the kicking game, which they had been kind of down on before we got there, so like, kind of long story short, it's just whatever role you got, man. Like, I just tried to embrace as much as I could. Not saying I was always great at it, because you always feel like you can do something else, but like once you kind of embrace what you're doing and just it all kind of works out, kind of be where your feet are again.
Absolutely. And you kind of hit also too, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and Shayne too. What makes, when you get into recruiting, there's so many factors that are important. What makes a great recruiter as a coach, and how do you establish that bond with the guys you're recruiting?
Kind of from my standpoint, I think it's also kind of coaching philosophy a little bit, is just being authentic. I can go out there and try to do, I'm not going to say gimmick stuff, but some people have different personalities, like recruiting, and their coaching styles are different than mine. But like, as soon as you try to be somebody else, those kids, they're just like adults, they know exactly who you are, whether you're, as soon as you try to act like somebody you're not, they see right through it. So the big thing is I try to be authentic, I try to be myself, and, just kind of go from there. I think the big thing is, especially with Coach Napier, what we do at Florida, we're big about relationships. I think developing the relationship, and like, every time I talk to you, I don't want to talk to you about, okay, what's your top 5 right now? What are you looking for in school? Big thing is me is like, what you doing today? You playing hoops, you playing Call of Duty, you're getting on Fortnite, I'm a big, Red Dead Revolver guy for a little while. I play some video games, just whatever you can do to develop that relationship. And just, as soon as they know you're being you, not saying you're always going to get the guy, but you're going to get an authentic answer when you ask the tough questions. So if you're authentic with them, they're going to be authentic with you. And then kind of where you stand, and you can move on from there, or push or pull, whatever you got to do.
Right. That authenticity starts going both ways when you show that side of you, correct? Shayne, what do you think? Is there anything that stands out to you? I mean, you've spent some time, in the college football game, and beat out the Hokies when I was at Virginia Tech there for a recruit. What helped you, or what, helped you excel in the recruiting game?
Well, obviously, I think having the background at my position from my playing days helps a good bit. And, I would be lying if I said that it didn't. But I think building relationships, and like what Coach Counts talked about, was authenticity. When you truly take an interest and you don't come across as a used car salesman, you're interested in what they have going on, their personal life, their family life, and you're able to have conversations on the phone where they don't dread talking to you. And, I remember when I was being recruited in high school, I think I learned lessons from that, because there were coaches that was just like, my mom would be in the room, or, and I'd walk out there and I'd be like, and you kind of put yourself in the position of, you want that person to want to call you and want to talk to you, and you want their parents to be able to talk to you and ask questions, and you have to learn about the university that you're at so that you can answer questions without saying, well, let me get you in touch with so and so because they can answer that question better. Now, I always found that I had to be honest if there were things I didn't know, because I didn't want to BS my way through it. But, I feel like being yourself, being interested, and then actually having like an emotional connection with players, which it takes time. That doesn't happen, easily, because it takes time to actually build that type of relationship, even with the players that you have on your team. But when I would be involved in recruiting of other positions that maybe I wasn't familiar with, I made it more about just their relationship. And I never really played video games, but if someone liked outdoor stuff, we talk about outdoor stuff, or hunting, or fishing, or NASCAR, or music, or whatever. And I felt that the relationships that I made, and even to this day, because there are guys that either I didn't get, or maybe it never got to the point where I, fully offered them a scholarship or anything. These people still have contact with me, and I have a 5-year relationship with Jake Moody, who's at Michigan right now. From recruiting him when I was at Michigan, Central Michigan. There's guys that I recruited when I was at Michigan State that I still have contact with, and still, we text each other back and forth, and comment on each other's social medias and things like that. And then you talk about the world of social media and how that plays into recruiting. It's this world that I didn't know about until late in my playing career, and I really didn't have a big interest in social media. But once I got into coaching, I had to kind of restart social media, learn what it was all about, learn how to use it. And then it was like, what type of content can I put out that's not just fluffing the image of the school that you're at, but how do you make the players that you're recruiting see your content and appreciate your content if it involves a retweet with them or whatever, but put something that you feel like that they would be interested in onto your content. And then when you message with them, it's you don't have to be the used car salesman. You can just be interactive, you can be present, and just know that you're someone that they can feel like you're gonna get an honest answer from. And honesty is probably one of the bigger things. Like, I was never a fan of some of these schools that do these uncommittable offers. I feel like, because most of the positions that I recruited were specialists, there's no such thing as an uncommittable offer with a specialist. You either get one or you don't. It's all the other positions that you hear about, schools that have literally 400 offers on the table when they can only take 20 or 25 or whatever their numbers are that year. And I'm just not a fan of that. So been fortunate that, because specialist has been kind of my niche, it's been like, well, I'm working on getting you one. I'm working on getting you one. I'm working on the head coach or whatever. And it's a process. So you don't have to worry about offering a kid and then all of a sudden saying, hey, by the way, we don't have it. We can't take your commitment. It's never really been an issue. So, having that has been good. But, I guess just, overall, it's really just a matter of, does that person feel like you could either be a friend or a father or a family member to them? And that's the way I've looked at it. And it's worked for me. I feel like I've typically done well in recruiting with the targets that I've had, and even ones that never fully got to that point, I've helped them get connected with other schools if they needed to have that connection, if it wasn't going to work out with my school.
Absolutely. You sure beat us out, but having that connection, it's huge. Talk to me real quick, Coach Couch. I see this game changer coordinator, and I love the title, man. You guys come out of nowhere. It reminds me of Game Breaker. I don't know if you guys ever played back in the day when I was a kid. NCAA Game Breaker 98 on PlayStation 1. What is this all about, man? This is different.
Yeah, so that's kind of Coach Napier's baby. When I got to Louisiana, game changers is what we call special teams. And the big thing is like, each game we want to have one game-changing play in the kicking game, whether it be, winning field goal, big time kickoff return, punt return, block punt, block field goal, what have you, some kind of game change, flip the field on punt, tackle inside the 20. So our big deal is, making a game-changing play. So, since we call special teams game changers, you can't have a special teams coordinator. You got to have a game changers coordinator. And I'm not a big flashy kind of guy, but the head coach, it's his philosophy. So I'm all in, man. Because that's the mentality that he brings to our kicking game. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work our tails off to make sure we make a game changing play, and we kind of go from there. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. And that, as you guys know, that buy-in from a head coach is so big. How do you guys make it special to players? I know at other schools, they might not even have really a special teams coordinator, and it shows on the field. But how do you guys make it special to your players so they know, like, hey, this is how we're going to gain an advantage, get an upper hand?
I'm one thing I think I try to do is I try to show situations that changes games, game changing plays. Honestly, I guess you'd say good and bad, and how that affects the game. We try to do that. You obviously have, different things. You have your players of the week. You have, your awards and all that kind of stuff. But I think the big thing with us is just, this is the way you're going to get on the bus. And trying to also show like your older players, okay, you're on a, Shayne knows this, more than anybody. You got a 53-man roster, right? You got a long snapper, a punter, a quarterback, a long snapper, punter, kicker. You got, 2 quarterbacks. That's 5. So that's 48 people. I mean, you take away your offensive linemen, you take away some of your defensive linemen, unless you're a top tier X receiver or something, you're going to be playing the kicking game at the next level. So what we try to do is, look, we're preparing you to be at the next level. And I try, when we're doing our installs, when we're doing teach tapes and stuff, I show how our special teams philosophy, our schemes, our techniques, how it relates to the NFL. Everything that we do is tied in that way, some way, and we make sure that we show a lot of it. Because, in my opinion, my in my all the years that I've been doing this, guys like to see themselves doing things, and they like to see the best of the best doing things. So we try to show them doing it. We try to show the NFL players doing it, and also like your NFL players, that their whole world is in the NFL is playing kicking game. And there's a lot of people that made a lot of money and been playing for a lot of years just because they're good at kicking game. So if you're a mid-tier player that's right on the edge of maybe I'm going to make this team or maybe I'm not, if you got that good background in kicking game, you're going to be able to show that team you got something extra. So that's kind of where we come from it. And motivation, I think you're either motivated or you're not. And we're going to play the players that are going to be motivated to play for us, and they'll be on the bus. So I kind of get the last say when we're making that travel roster. So, that's kind of the way we look at it.
Yeah, Shayne, also, just to reiterate what Coach Couch is saying, we had a Cowboys analyst, you might know him, that was a Virginia Tech alum come, and he said something like, in the NFL, if you're the third running back or the fourth receiver, he went by every position. And if you were not one of the top 2 guys, you had to play on special teams. That firsthand. Is that kind of how teams were structured when you played too?
Yeah, and anytime, especially on game day, because you have 45 guys who dress out who are active for a game. I'm actually going to pull up some slides I have here. So I'm sure Coach Couch, if you go back and look through some of the old files that I had there's a thing called NFL Thursdays. And on those clips, so like you have him and you have to explain, like he started out as a 6th round draft pick. Okay. He was probably RB6 and then he became RB1 by game 1. And then I had video of him running down on kickoff and like smashing somebody. And then I had his teammates and coaches from that time explaining how, because he was willing to go on special teams, and that ended up with him becoming a Hall of Fame player, and being able to, have all these accolades that he has. And then I go through and I make examples of guys, like Nate Ebner, and you see all the things that people have been able to do because of, and then I talk about performance-based pay, which is kind of like an inverted pyramid type way of paying players based on the lower your salary, but the more your playing time, the more money you get on top of your salary. So it's just like finding little things to like make sure guys know that, hey, this guy was not a superstar in college, didn't really, and the little bit of position play that they did excel at, they really didn't get a chance to do it when they were actually in the NFL. And give kind of like the percentage of their plays on offense versus defense versus special teams, and then be able, and then so Matt Slater is like the poster child for special teams. The guy literally had 25 special teams tackles as a senior in college, and maybe one reception in college. He had some kickoff returns for touchdowns and stuff, but the guy's made over $25 million in his career and has one reception in the NFL as a wide receiver. And, being able to show just different examples of guys that are able to do things just kind of makes it a little incentive for the guys that all think they're going to make it in the NFL. Because I promise you, if you go into a meeting and say, who here wants to play in the NFL? Almost everybody in the room, and probably everybody in the room, should probably raise their hand, because let's just be honest, everybody wants to play in the NFL when you're a college football player. And then you go through like, this is how you make the team. And then you show guys like Tariq Cleveland and other players from the school that you're at. And you show how they were superstars at that school, but then they were a bubble receiver who was 6th on the depth chart, but they're willing to run down on special teams and be on, block on return teams and all these things. And you show film of them excelling, and you even maybe get a clip of them explaining why they had to be on special teams, and the guys start to buy into it a little more. And you're always going to get pushback, because you're always going to get those guys that think they're too good for it, think that they're going to, be the next, superstar in the NFL. But it's very rare that somebody ends up being a Kyle Pitts, or someone ends up being, an Emmitt Smith. I mean, you've got to sometimes work your way into that spot. And, special teams is the way to get on the bus. And you just have to make sure the guys understand that and are constantly reminded of it, because, I can't tell you how many times you have to explain to someone that, hey, this player actually was redshirting or was not playing this year. They were on scout team, but because they gave so much effort during scout periods, they actually earned a spot on special teams, got on the field, and then because they were on the field, somebody got hurt, they go in and play safety or defensive back or linebacker or whatever. Then all of a sudden they're starting on that, and then their special teams role maybe in college becomes a little limited, because you probably try to save some of your better players. But you show how it works out for guys, and then you have to go through and show how teams like Alabama, teams that put their superstars on special teams, and how the teams with the most starters on special teams are actually the most successful teams. And when you're able to show them concrete proof of that, it's a slow process, but slowly but surely you get the guys you want, and the guys that want to be on there on the field. And that's the challenge, is really being able to keep those guys going and wanting to be on special teams, so that they're not just going through the motion, they're actually wanting to learn and wanting to be a contributor.
I think that 25 million, that stands out to a lot of kids too. That's freaking unbelievable. Coach Cash, we're kind of winding down here, but I want to get, organization is so important in special teams. Do you have a team focus or a unit focus when you go into camp? What have you used in the past? And then what's something that stands out to you that not a lot of people do organizationally that you think should be focused on more or done more as far as special teams go?
Our mantra, is tedious repetition of the basics. So the big thing is, we have, if you watch us play, it might look like we're doing a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, we teach all of our stuff in concepts. And when we get our concepts down, it's just the tedious repetitions of those basics, those concepts. And as it looks, as we go down it, the way that we practice and everything is all going to be the tedious repetition of those basic fundamentals we put in early. I'm a big proponent of teaching you how to do it before we add the scheme into it. So like, if you don't know how to take proper footwork, or you don't know what we're trying to accomplish here, I don't think it's ideal if we just go right into scheme. So we're kind of our whole philosophy is kind of a part whole, crawl, walk, run. That's how we look at everything. So we're gonna, walk it, we're gonna talk it, we're gonna, everything is from an individual standpoint, and then we go to group, and then we go to full team reps. It's all based on that, and as you work onto it, I think our big deal is adding external stimuli for every level you go up. So that's what kicking game is, right? You're running down, you're running kickoff, and I can teach you how to, enter combat. I can teach you how to attack the edges, attack the axis, all the terms that we use for kickoff or return or what have you. But okay, you look phenomenal in the drill. Then when we start adding external stimuli to you, how are you going to be able to handle that? So that's kind of how we're always going to crawl, walk, run. We don't want to run until we can walk properly, and we don't want to walk until we can crawl properly. We got to make sure we build on everything. So as we're going, it's kind of we're going to build to a crescendo. Then we're going to go back and hit the basics again to make sure, that we're going to be ready to go. That's kind of our philosophy there. When it comes to organization, the one thing that when I was at Tulane, I was kind of a one-man show. I didn't have a kind of any help when it came to the organization or I didn't have a QC, I didn't have a GA. It was just kind of myself and the head coach kind of sitting down and getting it done. And I think the big thing that got me through that was being organized and keeping it concise, but with an extreme attention to detail. So, you get, like, for instance, like scouting reports and stuff, early on, I was trying to make these big booklets that look good, and I could, say, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But then, like, when it came to a time crunch, like, okay, am I going to worry about what I'm putting on paper, or am I going to put what I need on paper or in the system, what have you, and then spend that extra time with individual meetings with the players or watching more tape, what have you. Just big thing is I think, you spend more time on that fluff or that extra stuff. If you can't, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I'm a big history guy. And I read this book called The Bomber Mafia. It's talking about kind of before World War I, you had the people who were theorizing how to use bombers in World War II. There's a guy named Hansel, who was like a theorist, and you had this guy, Curtis LeMay, who was a practical application guy. So anytime we're getting ready to install a scheme or we're looking at game plans or anything like that, we always go back and look theory versus practice. Okay, on this board right here, it looks awesome. But are we going to be able to install it, teach it, execute it at a high level? In theory, it looks good, but do we have a practical application for it? So we got to make sure, even though it looks great on paper, you see this drill at the Glacier Clinic or on, social media, what have you, it looks awesome, but does it apply to what you do? And I think that really the last thing from kind of organization is, when I was learning coaching D-line play, I learned from this guy named Kevin Peoples, who's kind of a Pete Jenkins disciple. And he taught me what he calls the Pell method. It's drills, the skills, the time allotted. Okay, are your drills helping you execute the skills that you're going to use on game day? And when you're using those drills, am I going to spend time? What am I spending time on? You got to make sure you spend time on the drills that are going to be utilized to help you learn the skills and the time allotted that you have. So the big thing is, I think, you got to make sure whatever drills you have, they're directly applicable to playing that game on Saturday. And, there's a lot of them that that I've done in the past. They're like, oh yeah, that's a cool looking drill. Well, does that stuff show up on Saturday? If it does, absolutely, we'll keep doing it. But if it doesn't, man, we only get 16 minutes of practice. I'm going to throw that one out and make sure I got something in the practice plan that's going to help us get better to, because at the end of the day, drills are cool, but we want dubs on Saturday, so we got to make sure that we make sure our time is organized. And, when it comes to all your help, like your equipment people, your assistant coaches, like making sure you got great diagrams. It's sometimes it can be tedious, but the more tedious and attention to detail spent on that diagram, that equipment manager is going to be more prepared to set your drill up faster. So then you can get 5 more reps. We're a rep-based organization. So the more reps we can get, the better we're going to be, so that's kind of, how we kind of attack it all, just making sure that theory is practical and we use all the time we can to get the right reps for the right reasons.
Do you still use any of my stencils?
I haven't, this is going to sound pretentious of me because I do have help now. So I have not drawn a practice diagram at Florida, but they are still well made. I'm sure they found them on the system somewhere, but I'm lucky to where I'm not drawing the practice diagrams anymore.
I do have to say, Shayne, those are some of the best diagrams I've ever seen. I mean, Coach Couch, if you ever get a chance to look at them, you shared a few with me. They're freaking 3D. These guys got muscles on them, the opponents. I mean, it's freaking detailed. It looks really good. So I was like, Shayne showed me, and I was like, man, I got to step my game up. I'm slacking here.
Yeah, the equipment managers, even video, like when those guys, you can hand them a piece of paper if they're not on the computer themselves, but the TVs in the locker room, the players know where they're supposed to be, so they can go right to that spot and they know exactly what group they're in or whatever. The equipment managers, if they can have everything set up before the period or practice, seeing exactly what they need to see, and the video guys knowing, okay, what camera's filming, what angle from what drill, whatever. That part of the organization, taking the time to put that together saves a lot of time on the field because everything can run a lot quicker.
Absolutely. And one other thing when it comes from that standpoint, like when you're looking at your drill stuff, the spacing of them, you got to, like, especially if they're competitive drills, making sure like your spacing, so you're like doing a one-on-one kickoff versus return drill, making sure that spacing is enough where that guy's trying to avoid a block, and like we did a study, the good distance between a kickoff guy avoiding a block and a return guy blocking him to make sure that they're going to both be able to chance to win is like 5 yards. We felt like if it was too far away, that the return guy is going to be able to block him easier. If he's too close, the cover guy's going to win. So just making sure that your drills are set up to where they're going to be able to replicate the game, and just always trying to sit there and make sure that you're always constantly evaluating what you're doing and making sure you're trying to figure out ways to do it better.
That's all the time we have. Thank you, Chris Couch, for coming on, and Shayne Graham for being today's co-host. I'm Brett Arkelian. Thanks for watching the Iceman Kicking Podcast. A word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by The Kicker's Bible. The Kicker's Bible. Ever wondered about how many kicks you should do during practice after pulling your quad multiple times? Repeatedly snapping the ball over your punter's head? Keep getting dumped by all your girlfriends for missing kicks? Well, we can't help with all those things. But for some of those, there's The Kicker's Bible. Proven training methods and secrets used by NFL specialists, written by yours truly, Brett Arkelian, with over 20 NFL specialist accounts, including personal excerpts from record-setting and Hall of Fame specialists David Akers and Shayne Graham. If you are interested in any of these fantastic tips and excerpts discussed in this episode, visit IcemanKicking.com or go to my Twitter bio, Iceman_kicking.